Hi, everybody. Today's Monday, August 4th, 2025, and our friend Paul Kirk Robert is back with us. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you, Nima.
Paul, Donald Trump has decided to send two submarines and nuclear submarines close to Russia. I don't know where they were before, but he has decided to send them close to Russia, somewhere close to Russia. And he said that it's a response to what Medvedev said, that he's threatening the United States. Not only that, but also we have the Trump administration deciding to put missiles that can be used by F-35 nuclear missiles to send them again to Europe. The United States withdrew them in 1980s, and they're back again to Europe. And here is what Donald Trump said in terms of sending these submarines.
They put out a statement, and the answer is they are in the region, yeah, where they have to be.
Did you say what Steve Witkoff's message will be to the Russians? Is there anything they can do to avoid sanctions at this point?
Yeah, get a deal where people stop getting killed. They had a number that just came out that a tremendous number of Russian soldiers are being killed. And likewise, Ukraine, a lower number, but still thousands and thousands of people. And now we're adding towns where they're being hit by missiles. So it's a lot of people being killed in that ridiculous war. And, you know, we stopped a lot of countries from war, India and Pakistan. We stopped a lot of countries. And we're going to get that one stopped, too. Somehow we're going to get that one stopped. That's a really horrible.
Paul, these tremendous numbers that he's talking about, is that he posted that since January 2025, Russia has lost 112,000 soldiers. On the other hand, Ukrainians have lost 8,000 soldiers. The numbers are somehow unbelievable. Your take on what's going on?
Well, I think he has the numbers reversed. I mean, if Trump's numbers were correct, it would be the Russian front that's crumbling, not the Ukrainian one. So I don't know where he gets these numbers. He probably doesn't know himself. So I think it is factual that the Pentagon or somebody in Washington has been greatly overestimating Soviet casualties, because you see figures that of Russian combat deaths and casualties that exceed the size of the Russian army. And well, they can't be true. So I suppose this is just part of the propaganda. We continue to pretend that we're winning. I think all of this, Nima, is reckless and it's irresponsible. And Trump says he wants to end the conflict and save lives. So why is he why is he returning nuclear missiles to Europe that Reagan got out? Why is he sending more nuclear submarines? The Russians will find out where they are and shatter them. If you want to have peace, you don't go around making nuclear threats, such as sending more nuclear missiles, sending more nuclear armed submarines. That's not the way you pursue peace. And it must disappoint Putin's hopes. I mean, Putin has held on to his hopes that some kind of agreement can be reached for a long time. And I think he's held on to them too long. So it's a dangerous situation. It makes no sense. And I think, Trump made that statement to the Atlantic reporter that he rules. He said the difference between his first term and his current term is that the first term he ruled America, but he had all those domestic crooks. But now he rules America and the world. That's what he said. I rule America and the world. Well, this is hubris exceeding itself, and it's dangerous. He seems to think there's no limit on his power to bully people, and of course there's serious limits, so it's dangerous. I'm really disturbed that there's no one in his administration that calls him aside and says, "Look, this is reckless. We're provoking. If you convince the Kremlin that you're going to attack them, they may attack us based on that belief, and we're not ready to be attacked." And so we shouldn't pursue your agenda, Mr. President, in this way. We have to find a different way to go about it. But no one's done that. So I think the situation is dismal.
Paul, when it comes to the case of Ukraine, do you see any sort of clear message from some sort of policy, a robust policy, something that can be documented, that can be talked about the conflict in Ukraine? Do you see? Because when it comes to Russia and how Russia feels about Ukraine, they are all documented. They know 33 points that they put on in a document. They know what they want in Ukraine, how they can achieve that. They have some sort of solution for their points. But when it comes to the United States, you don't see anything coming, anything substantial coming out of the administration. Nobody, I don't see Rubio coming out and telling us what they really think about Ukraine. What do they want in Ukraine? They were criticizing every time Donald Trump is talking about Ukraine and say it's Biden's war. So what's going on right now? You are the president of the United States. What would you do about Ukraine? What is the official policy of your administration? I think so far we haven't heard, even with Witkoff, I don't see anything substantial coming out of the administration with any case. And even in the mainstream media, they're talking each and every day, each and every minute, they're talking about Ukraine. But do you know what is the official policy of the United States? What do they want with the war in Ukraine, in your opinion?
They want to destabilize Russia. I don't think Washington has any intention of ending the conflict. They're just going to turn it over to NATO. I think Washington wants to be free to serve Israel against Iran and for whatever scheme they have against China. You know, Washington now has intervened in the Chinese Silk Road, the new Silk Road. They've purchased for 99 years boundaries separating Iran from Azerbaijan and Armenia, which was to be part of the Silk Road. And so the Americans are in there now militarizing that. And obviously, there's no backing away from the Wolfowitz doctrine, declared some 30 years ago that the principal goal of the United States foreign policy is to prevent the rise of any country that could limit American unilateralism. Well, that's Russia and China. So we're still trying to enforce the Wolfowitz doctrine. And so if you're trying to do that, there's no possibility of peace with either country. Now, when Trump says it's not his war, he's mistaken. I mean, it's true, it's not his war, that he didn't start it, but it's Washington's war, and he is And so it is his war. You can't be the president and say that a war between the United States and Russia is not your war. It is. And he's not to take responsibility for something that he says he's going to end. Well, if it's not his responsibility, why does he want to end it? So it's all just nonsense. It's talk that doesn't really make any sense. And when the Russians hear it, they see evil intentions. See, even Putin now is starting to wonder about all his naive hopes. When Putin said, I don't even want to talk to him. Well, that kind of dismissal tells Kremlin that expect war, expect war. That's what they're headed for. It's war. And so at some point, the Russians will be preparing for war. In fact, I think they've started. There was a recent announcement by Putin himself that their new missile, that powerful, it has the power of nuclear weapons without being radioactive, that is now in production and is being distributed among the troops. Well, this is a game changer. You can now destroy a city without producing radioactive material. So I would say the situation for European countries that are hosting American nuclear weapons is dire. And so it's irresponsible of Trump to be escalating on the nuclear front, sending more missiles into Europe and sending more submarines. If the Russians believe conflict is coming, then all of those sites, including the subs, will be destroyed. I suspect the Russians know where the subs are, or if they don't, they'll find out. And they'll be shouted, and the Russians can destroy them with their own subs on the water. So it's just a stupid situation, and it all comes from the control over American foreign policy that the neoconservatives achieved, and their ability to impose the Wolfowitz doctrine on Washington as American foreign policy. And that doctrine precludes peace with adversaries with sufficient power to serve as a constraint on American unilateralism. So it's a doctrine that proclaims war against Russia and China. That's what it is. I think it's taken Putin a long time to comprehend that. And I don't know if China comprehends it yet. I think it seems so absurd that they couldn't believe it. But I think now it's sort of dawning on Putin that he's facing a future war. And unfortunately, he has a central bank director that tells him, oh, Russia can't afford a military. Russia, we think Russia is struggling under our sanctions. They're struggling under the 18% interest rate of the Russian central bank director. I mean, if you look at that woman, it's hard not to conclude she's a CIA operative. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's doing something great for Russia, but I just don't perceive it. I just see her really damaging Russia far more than the American sanctions. So I'm rereading A.P.J. Taylor's history, the origins of the Second World War. And the war is nothing like the history books tell us. It all resulted from everyone's diplomatic blunders. And they cover up that by blaming Hitler. Oh, he was out to conquer the world. It's nonsense. It was a war that resulted from the diplomatic blunders of everybody, even to some extent Hitler's. But primarily the British. I mean, the Czech, the British, the Polish. Oh my God, the blunders, the French, the Soviet, the blunders produced the war. It was not something anybody intended, especially Hitler. He did not intend this war, but blunders caused it, and that's what I'm watching right now. I'm watching blunder after blunder leading into a major war that could be terminal. I mean, the weapons today are extremely destructive. There's nothing like that during World War II. So people make blunders, and they do themselves in, and everyone else in.
Does Europe want it again?
Sorry?
Does Europe want it again? Want this?
You know, the thing is, in those days, in the late 30s, there were a lot of intelligent leaders in Europe, well-educated people who wanted peace. Nobody wanted the war, including Hitler. They didn't want war. And compared to the leaders today, they're giants. We got a bunch of nincompoops today. They're uneducated. They don't know anything. They're bought and paid for by interest groups. If the smart, educated people could make the blunders they did that led to World War II, just imagine what the fools today are going to do. I mean, they're not on the same level of competence as the European leaders in the late 30s. They're just not. And so it's frightening. If you read Taylor's book, you'll say that's what's happening right now. You can see it. It's an absolute roadmap. We're doing the same thing. It's mindless, and all Trump did by sending nuclear submarines and more nuclear missiles is to convince Russia to be prepared for war and to strike first. That's all Trump's done. And it's not a threat that in any way is going to intimidate Medvedev or Putin or Kremlin. It's just going to convince them they're dealing with warmongers, and that they'll have to be prepared to deal with them. And I think that's the wrong thing. We want the Russians to decide. I'm seeing other signs that Putin might finally be catching on. You know, he's had such great hopes that somehow he could get a mutual security agreement with the West. And that's really what he means about the root cause of the current conflict. It's the absence of a mutual security agreement that gives stability to the relations between the two major nuclear powers. And so this is a tremendous goal for someone to have, and he's done everything he can to continue hoping for that outcome. This is why he accepts all the provocations. He says, you know, they're not as important as getting this agreement. Well, if he gives up on the agreement, his behavior is going to alter dramatically. And I think we see, perhaps it already is. John Helmer, and he may have revealed this on your program, has indicated that he has seen some evidence, of which he's unsure, that the Russians have finally established the S-400 air defense system in Iran for the Iranians, and that there's a battery of the S-400 and large numbers of Russian technicians there installing the system and training the Iranians how to operate it. Well, if that's the case, as I understand it, though some of your military guests would probably know better, as I understand it, the S-400, that means there's not going to be any more American or Israeli air attacks on Iran, because the range of it will blow them out of the skies before they get close enough to launch their weapons. And they certainly won't be able to enter Iranian airspace or possibly even Syrian airspace. So we see here a new development that, in my opinion, is years overdue. Putin has held off doing anything because of this great hope of getting a mutual security agreement that terminates these hostilities and the dangers in them. And if he gives up that hope, we're going to see more than the S-400 going into Iran. And it's not going to be an easy or safe road. And for somebody with Trump's bravado and ego, he won't know how to negotiate it. He won't be able to. He won't have the humility it takes to back up to prevent a major confrontation. And so it's just like the blunders that led to World War II. We're watching them. They're happening right now. And I think Putin has made blunders. His blunder is to accept too many provocations for too long, so that he's now discounted. And that, in my view, is a dangerous component. And you add to that Trump's bravado and bullying nature and lack of humility and arrogance, you've got a recipe for one big war.
Paul, do you feel that Europe is still in case of, we know that how dangerous is this sort of this business of nuclear weapons, deploying them and sending them. But you mentioned the leaders in Europe are somehow paid for, or somehow they're getting paid by somebody, that by the establishment, I don't know, in the United States or whoever that would be. But do they really care about a dangerous, this sort of mindset that you may have a nuclear war that could destroy all of Europe? Their neighbor, their Russia is so close to Europe, they can destroy Europe so easily. I don't know how Europe is, because with the air defense system, we know that, let's assume even not going nuclear, with the weapons that Russia has, with the missiles they have, they can hit anywhere in Europe. Europe, it doesn't have the air defense system, doesn't have the capabilities. Even they bought Patriot systems, and we learned today that they're going to be delivered to Europe in the next 7 years. And so it's somehow, you look at the news, you look at the reality of what's going on, there has to be some sort of explanation for this sort of behavior. How you can imagine that they can risk their country for something that doesn't make sense? And you hit Russia deep into the Russian soil. So what would be the outcome for you, for Germany, for the United Kingdom? Because they can hit back harder.
Harder. Yeah. Well, you see, it's like I say, these were the same kind of blunders that led to World War II. How did all of these countries that had every intention to avoid war cause one? And so they then tried to blame it on Hitler, claiming that he had world conquest goals and all that. So APJ Taylor shows us just total nonsense, that most of it caught Hitler by surprise. he was not prepared for any kind of war. He had he wanted a military in width, which served to intimidate, but was incapable of fighting a war. It has to be in depth. And the generals kept telling him, we can't fight a war. You're going about this the wrong way. We got to have military in depth. He says, I'm not going to war. It's not going to be a war. This is just to help them see reason and cooperate. We don't go into war with anybody. And this is, he had no intention of war. And when he invaded Russia later, he hadn't even prepared transport. They were using horses and wagons. Well, things like that happen. It's happening again. And how do you explain people that can't confront reality, who can't recognize it? I recently wrote an article. I said, whether you recognize reality or not, it's going to prevail. The reality is going to prevail, not the people and their hopes. They make blunders. They can't confront reality. And therefore, it prevails over them. And that's the problem. That's what's happening. The question you asked me, what is the American position that Trump's supposed to agree to? Well, not a single person other than you has asked that question. And I think I'm the only one to point out that it was the question. The media have never asked Trump, what is it, Mr. President, that you want Putin to do? What is it what is the agreement you've got? What parts of it does Putin not like? Well, there's no agreement. Trump hadn't got an agreement. The ultimatum is, Putin, you go make an agreement with Zelensky. You make an agreement with Zelensky. That's the order. Well, this is a stupid thing because Zelensky's already said that the only agreement that he'll make is he gets back all of Donbass, all of Crimea, and war reparations. Well, there's no way the Russians can do that. And then we have also the problem. Zelensky is out of office. His term expired a long time ago. He's no longer a legitimate leader of the country. So how does Putin make a deal with a guy who's not the leader of the country? It's not a deal that can stand. And the next guy that comes in can say, well, he wasn't a president. The deal doesn't exist. I'm the president. You have to make a deal with me. Putin knows that. So these kinds of avoidance of facts, this is what caused World War II, and it's causing World War III. It's nonsensical for Trump to say, it's not my war. You, Putin, you got 10 days. You make a deal with Zelensky. It can't be done. He can't make a deal with Zelensky. And the only people who can make a deal is Trump and Putin. And Putin has made no effort. He hasn't met with, Trump has made no effort. Trump has not met with Putin. He hadn't sat down and say, now tell me, what is it that you want that ends this conflict? What are these root causes? Tell me about them. and he has to listen, and then he's got to make up his mind whether he can agree to those, or if he can't, which ones he can agree with. He has to, but he's not engaged. So if Trump's not engaged in any effort other than to issue an order, an ultimatum, look, during the entirety of the Cold War, any American official or president who had issued an order to the Soviet Union would have been sent to the insane asylum. It's an absurdity. You can't order the leader of a militarily powerful country that can wipe you off the face of the earth. You can't. It's like Medvedev said, we're not Venezuela or Mexico. What are you going on about? This isn't Iraq. Well, where does this kind of foolishness come from? And it's one, I don't think Trump wants to end the war. He can't. The military security complex won't let him because there's too much profit in it. What's going to happen to them if we don't have an enemy that requires ever more spending to keep that defense armament business going? I mean, Eisenhower told us in 1961, you're going to be in real bad trouble because the Cold War has kept us from demobilizing, and this monster military industrial complex, that's what Eisenhower called it, it's going to grow and grow and grow and take over, and it has. So Trump, he can't get out of it. Look, Reagan had to go to unusual lengths to end the Cold War with Gorbachev. And it was a big risk for Reagan to take, but he was determined. Nobody else will buck the military security complex. So that's the basic problem. You look at that, and you look at the ideology of American hegemony, and you've got two roadblocks. How is the president going to run over these two roadblocks? He can't. How's he going to do it? So I think Putin should have recognized that 10 years ago, whoever is in the office. We have the pursuit of American hegemony, and we have the military security complex that is not going to give up its enemy. It has to have an enemy, or it dies on the vine from lack of funding, from lack of power. So that is the basic situation, Nima. And I don't know anything that can be done about it. This is why I have said from the beginning, more than 8 years ago, that Putin needed to end that war immediately, with all the force it took, immediately. And this would serve two purposes. It would block any involvement of the West, or any further involvement, and it would lay down a lesson: you mess with us, we're going to kick your butt. And that would have terrified the Europeans, and they would have said, to hell with NATO, we don't want any more of this. It's beyond our ken. It's not something we can deal with. And so I see it as a failure also of Putin to see the reality and respond appropriately. Instead, he said, I'll use this war and we'll get a mutual security agreement. Well, he's not going to get one. And all these years have led to more and more involvement. And now we have both Trump and the Germans talking about sending missiles from Ukraine into Moscow. Well, that'll be the provocation that unleashes hell. And if Putin doesn't respond to that, he's probably going to be removed. So this is a situation, and there's nobody other than me and you talking about it. Trump's not hearing it. He won't hear it. If he hears it, he'll just dismiss it. Me, the great, all-powerful Trump, I rule America and the world. Well, he's going to find out. He doesn't.
Paul, here is what Speaker Mike Johnson said in Israel.
Mike Johnson, the 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives in America. We're here with a delegation of members of the House. We're so grateful to be in Israel, particularly on this day, recognizing the destruction of the two temples and 2 times in history. But it is such a moving time for us to be here at the Wailing Wall. We've offered our prayers, we put our notes into the wall as is traditional, and we're so moved by the hospitality of the people and the great love of Israel. Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel, and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do. It's a matter of faith for us and a commitment that we have. God bless you.
It's humiliating. I'm so embarrassed. Here's the Speaker of the House crawling on his stomach, kissing Netanyahu's dirty boots, dripping with blood of Palestinians. And here's that fool Speaker of the House. Oh, the Scripture tells us. The Scripture doesn't tell us any such thing. We didn't even exist when the Scripture was written. It's sickening. That's all I can say. It's sickening. Really, who rules America? Netanyahu. Trump says, I rule America in the world. No, Trump, you don't even rule America. And Netanyahu rules America. Can you imagine this? I mean, see, well, why does the Speaker of the House and a whole bunch of congressmen have to go over there and genuflect before Israel? I mean, and we are a great superpower. We exist at Israel's mercy, it seems. It seems we exist. If we don't go over there and kiss their butt, I mean, okay. I try to imagine Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn, going over there and saying something like that. I mean, this is what I say. We have nothing but insubstantial people. I wrote just the other day, as far as I can tell, there are only 2 members of the House of Representatives who are not Israeli puppets. And there's only 1 U.S. Senator. So there you have it.
Yeah, you're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey, and these 2. And Paul, to understand the behavior of the Trump administration, I don't know if you saw the interview that the former Israeli intelligence, Uri Ben Menashe, he mentioned how the deep roots of the Epstein files and how deep is that in terms of controlling the U.S. foreign policy vis-a-vis Israel. Here is what he said.
Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, came on this show, the emeritus professor of law at Harvard, and said, no, Trump's behavior as regards Gaza, as regards bombing Iran, as regards bombing Yemen, all his behavior can't be explained by any blackmail tapes of Trump. Do you believe in any way that the genocide in Gaza is being prolonged by the late Jeffrey Epstein?
I certainly believe that the Israelis are making sure that the Americans do not stop them from the killing in Gaza. I believe that the American government is sort of trapped by the Israelis. Jeffrey Epstein is one of their tools to trap them.
And what do you think of Dershowitz's denial?
Hold on a second. I want to give you an example. Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, Ehud Barak met Arafat in the 90s, and there was no deal. The reason was Epstein. They were being blackmailed by Epstein. Ehud Barak was also a friend of Epstein, the prime minister of Israel at the time. But he was being blackmailed by the Israeli right wing as well. And they stopped an agreement with Arafat. They were about to reach an agreement there for a two-state solution, but that was stopped because of Epstein. They were both being blackmailed by Epstein.
Paul, when you look at the case of Epstein and the way that Donald Trump is strangely behaving, somehow one time says, in one day says that it's not that much important. We are achieving a lot of things. We have to talk about the achievements that we had. The other day comes out there is nothing more. It's all about the old people making things up, and there is nothing real in that. What is going on? And it seems that they're using not only against the people in the administration, in the presidents of the United States, they're using against the Israelis who are not in line with them as well. Somehow some sort of atmosphere that is controlling everything that is not in line with them.
Right. That's exactly right. And what the former Mossad agent just said, that's what I believe. I think it's certain. I've always been convinced that the Epstein operation was not some money-making child sex trafficking operation. It was a Mossad honey trap to gain control over American foreign policy, to be sure that it coincided exactly with the Israeli right-wing Zionists. And I'm not at all surprised that more reasonable Israeli political leaders were trapped in it. In fact, actually one of them was assassinated. So the Zionists in Israel don't permit Jews.
You mean Ishaq Rabin? You're talking about Ishaq Rabin being assassinated?
I'm talking about the assassination of an Israeli prime minister by some right-wing guy. I forget which prime minister it was, who was a
Ishaq
reasonable.
Rabin. It was Rabin. Ishaq Rabin. Was
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's right. And so the Zionists are a powerful ideological force, extremely powerful. They've been acting successfully for decades. And they created Israel. The Zionists created it. And in the United States, they're powerful because of the neoconservatives. The neoconservatives are primarily dual American Israeli citizens. They're Jews, most of the neoconservatives in the United States. And so the conservatives turned over their magazines, their foundations to the neocons. And so there's no check on them. they fit in with the conservative anti-communist stance, and they fit in with the liberals' American exceptionalism stance. And basically took over American foreign policy and have ensured that it favors the Zionist goal of Greater Israel. And that's why nothing can be done about Israel's elimination of Palestine or of Israel's absorption now. Israel now is absorbing parts of Syria. And it's why Netanyahu can order Washington to attack Iran, as Washington did. Now, there's no client list because Epstein was not marketing sex with children. He was using young women to entrap leaders who could influence and control the direction of American foreign policy in the Middle East. And it was done, as I said, to make American policy in the Middle East coincide with Israel's. And it has. I mean, what have we done in the 21st century? We've talked about it before. The United States, with its lives, its money, destroyed 5 countries for Israel and covered it up by saying it's a war on terror or we're bringing democracy. Well, it's just total nonsense. And we were forced by the blackmail power, and it hardly matters whether Trump's one of them or not, because it's all the important people in the American ruling establishment. And it's all the people within Israel that were a check, a partial check, maybe just a small check on the Zionist aspiration. And, a lot of people just wanted Israel. Well, the Zionists, they're not content with Israel. They want the Middle East. So that, what the former Mossad agent said, I mean, I hope he's somewhere safe. And yeah, he probably can't be safe wherever he is. If Mossad wants to get him, they'll get him. So it shows the helplessness. See, and it's not just the Americans. They've got the same blackmail on the Europeans, including a Prince of England. And if you really want to know, I think I've already said it on your program, the reason for Netanyahu's recent visit, his 3rd visit in 6 months, we all thought it was about Iran. There was no press conference, no report on what they discussed. Netanyahu came over here and told Trump, you deep six the Epstein files. We don't want the Americans to find out that we have been blackmailing the United States for 20, 30 years or longer. Moreover, if you release those files, you ruin the power of our blackmail information. It's in the public. We can't use it for blackmail. Everybody knows. And that's why Netanyahu came. That's why the files are. And so look, between the military security complex and the ability of Israel to blackmail and the neocon doctrine of American hegemony, what can anybody do? That's the question. It's an unaddressed question, like unaddressed questions that resulted in World War II that no one intended, including Hitler. No one intended World War II. Well, we've got the same thing. You can't address this question. And one of the reasons is probably many of the people capable of addressing it are being blackmailed. Well, you have to see how serious it is. And I don't know. Putin doesn't know all of this, I don't think. Or maybe he's being blackmailed. Or what, I don't know. But, he's certainly not, he has been really protective of Israel and has prevented both Syria and Iran from using Russian air defense systems to stop the attacks on their countries. He walked off and let Syria collapse after saving it. So how can Putin understand what I just explained to you? Between the Israelis' ability to blackmail, the doctrine of American hegemony, the power of the military security complex, not to be without enemies. It has to have enemies, or it can't exist. Well, how can anybody deal with that combination of power? No one can deal with it. So nothing can be done. And so we're facing a catastrophic war. It's no good pretending, oh, we would never have a war. Oh, it doesn't make sense. Well, nothing that caused World War II made sense either. History is written by the victors, and of course it becomes war propaganda because a historian has to make himself successful, and he can't do that by attacking the victors. You have to demonize the enemy to justify your victory. So people have no idea of what World War II actually was about, what happened, how, because historians can't afford to tell the truth. APJ Taylor did. He did it twice. I think he also explained the origins of World War I, and I think that cost him his Oxford appointment. I don't know what the origins of the Second World War cost him, but I'm sure he paid a high price. But this is a situation. There's historical ignorance everywhere because of the court historians. There's the power of the Israeli blackmail. They've been running the Epstein Operation. Say, where did Epstein get all this money? Well, I recently cited a person who has been studying it forever, and he says it was funneled into him through Jewish billionaires acting as conveyors from Mossad. Well, it came from somewhere, right? And so it's transparent. It was some kind of a blackmail operation. And so we have that. We've got American hegemony. We got the need for an enemy. And we're all chained up. We're wrapped up in chains. There's no Samson that can break the chains and address the problem. And that's our situation. It's a terrible fate. And if you try to tell people this, they'll just tell you you're crazy, or you're a conspiracy theorist, or people believe what they want to believe, and that's seldom the truth.
Thank you, Paul, for being with us today. Great
Well,
pleasure as always.
Well, thank you, Nima, for making me think about things that I hadn't thought about.
See you
And
soon.
I think I like my description of our helplessness. I may now write a column about it. Please send me the URL. I think time is running out. I really do. I think time is
Dangerous.
It's so dangerous, and no one knows it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Paul. See you soon.
See you soon.